Tonight, I'm very happy to welcome actress Jackie Rosenbaum from Canada. Uh, Hello, Jackie. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you so much. How are you?
Yes, welcome to our interviews on our YouTube channel. Here, Jackie, we've been talking a lot. Finally, we are interviewing you today. I want to ask you a little bit about your interest into arts. How did it start?
Sure. I'm not totally sure where it came from because it started very, very early. But my earliest memory of it was when I was maybe like 4 or 5 or something, and my great uncle, he used to like ask us questions. He used to like asking little kids questions. So he said to me one day, like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I never thought about it before. So I thought about it, and the only thing that came into my mind was actress. I don't even know how I knew what that was. It wasn't because I don't know. But then, even in that moment, at that age, I filtered myself because I thought that if I answered that kind of answer to a grown up, they would just like make fun of me and laugh it off. Because it's one of those, it's like you might as well say, I want to be, I don't know, like a fairy or like an astronaut or ballerina. You know what I'm saying? I just thought that grown ups would laugh at me. So I just said, like, oh, I don't know. You know what I mean? And he's like, don't worry, you'll figure it out one day. But because he asked me the question, I then realized that that's what I wanted to do. And so it was
And
pretty early
very
years.
early. But did you start?
Uh,
Did you study acting in Canada where you were born?
yeah. So I did. I took little classes here and there, but then I started studying it seriously when I was 11. Um, it was after school. It started as after school, but it was like a pretty serious program. It was we did like festival competitions about twice a year, and we did like exams at the end of the year. It's not exam. Why did I put that in quotes? Like in piano, they have conservatory piano, and they have the exams and grades and stuff like that. So we had that also. We had people, adjudicators flying in from Trinity College London to adjudicate us at the end of the year, and grade levels and whatever. We had to learn like theory and do all of these different types of monologues and poems, classic and not, and Shakespeare and all these different things. So I loved it. I became obsessed with it. It was the highlight of my week, like immediately. And I just started taking it more and more seriously, and um, definitely quickly became more important than my schoolwork. And I started doing well, thank goodness, in some, in the competitions and like winning stuff and doing well in my grade whatever exams. But I just loved it. Like when there was the summer break, I would just like go through my stuff and just pick a monologue for myself to work on just because I missed it. Like I just loved it. So yeah.
Yes.
And then
And yes.
yeah, go
No, I
it's
want to
almost
ask you, do you
yeah.
consider your first professional role in a Heartbeat, the television series? It was aired for one season, you know?
Yeah. It
Mm.
was I think it was my first major one. It wasn't my first professional role, but I would definitely say it was my first major one, which I thank God booked within a year of getting my agent. I booked that pilot. So at the beginning, I was getting like smaller jobs and voiceover jobs, which I really liked, and different smaller TV things, and then I auditioned for this Disney pilot, and I ended up finding out that I booked it, or maybe we shot the pilot already that summer before I started university. That's what I was going to say, by the way. I kind of forgot that I also like went to theater school as university. That's also kind of studying acting, but I started working before I actually got to university, and that's when I booked In a Heartbeat. So
Yes. Tell me, most of your roles you've done in Canada, or did you work in the United States as well?
I think everything that I shot professionally, I did in Canada, which was which was amazing for me because a lot of my friends started going to LA, for pilot season and doing whatever, and they would invite me sometimes. They're like, "Why don't you come? It's so fun." Like for me, I just didn't think that way. I just loved acting, and I was really grateful that I got to, earn my living, doing what I love and living where I already live. Like who needs to, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't have that sort of like ambitious sort of, I don't know, mindset. I was just like so happy to be able to like be doing it already, what I love. And I wasn't really, I was like a bit nervous about the whole like, oh my gosh, this is actually gonna be on TV. Like, oh my gosh, like what do I do with that? You know what I mean? But so I wasn't really looking for more of that.
But
So yeah, so I basically stayed in Toronto most of my professional
yes,
career.
usually a lot of American production come to Canada as well, you know. But and I
Exactly.
know a lot of actors like to move to the United States. Did you think
Yeah,
about it?
sure. I mean, eventually I started to, but not really. It just wasn't, I'm not really so, like businessy minded or like, I don't want to say I'm not ambitious, but I just don't think that way. I just, I just, I just loved acting and I just wanted to act. I mean, look, it's like, you do it for free. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you love something, like you're drawn to something and you love it, you just like, that's how I felt. I was like so grateful to be able to be making my living doing something that I would for sure, do for free and used to do for free, and was grateful that I didn't have to do some other sort of work that I didn't like in order to still, be able to pursue my like passion and love for it. So I was just very happy and grateful, like grateful. I wasn't looking for like, what's the next thing and building my career, which I should have been really looking back. It's like, why wouldn't I have been? Why wouldn't I try to, build my career? I just wasn't in that mindset. I just wasn't that type of person who thought that way. I was just, very happy with, with being able to, and like you said, there were a lot of American productions that were shooting in Toronto. So that's where I have, in a Heartbeat was Disney and all these other things. So um, there were certain things that I shot that they didn't even air in Canada until like years later when it went into syndication or something. So like I never saw a lot of the things that we shot in Toronto because they were only on American stations, So
But tell me, Jackie, do you have some kind of projects that were postponed when the COVID started this year?
so kind of yes and no. Like the thing that happens with me even before COVID really is that so I ended up moving overseas in the middle of my career basically, which I just became very, very drawn to like spiritual things, which again, I don't think it was a contradiction to my career at all. I definitely never felt compromised with anything that anyone asked me to do on screen or not. Like I only had such positive experiences, but I was always also very drawn to spirituality and stuff like that. And I came to Israel to study more of that. And I just became obsessed. Like, I don't know if that's, just like, I don't think I was obsessed with acting, but I was like, just like drawn and love and, whatever. And also the same thing when I came to Israel and realized like how much there is to learn and know and do and whatever. I just was like, so enwrapped in it and enthralled in it. And so I wasn't really thinking about like, okay, I want to like leave my career right now, but I was here and I wasn't there. I was in Israel, you know what I mean, for a bunch of years. And at the beginning I was flying back and forth actually to do some more work. Like what did I do? I think I came to Israel and then I shortly found out that they were doing a sequel to Twitches. Like I had just done Twitches, I think the year before, and then they were shooting a sequel that summer. So I went back to do that. There was some other like episodic that I was flying back and forth for a while, and I was very, very happy doing that. Um, but I ended up just deciding to stay a little longer and kind of like step away from on camera for a while, you know what I mean? Like sometimes people leave their careers in the middle to have a family and do things like that, which is great. But this was what I became like drawn to. So it was really only pretty shortly before COVID that I actually decided that it's like, wow, I can't believe I've been away from like my first love, which was acting, like for so long. And I really started to miss it. And even within the spiritual context of what I was learning, I was like, oh my gosh, this actually is a part of like who I am and blah, blah, blah. Like all these things that I used to think sounded so pretentious when other people said them, you know, it all just kind of like gelled and fit together for me. So I really, really, really became motivated then to go back and kind of, restart my career in Toronto. So I started with voiceover work, and I ended up booking the first audition that I had in voiceover, which was amazing. And doing a few different things and a few holds and a few whatever radio ads. And then before I was gonna I started with voiceover as opposed to on camera. I didn't jump right back into on camera because I wanted to kind of wet my feet a little bit before going back to audition. And then that's when COVID hit. So, so we actually, the industry and the people in the industry in Toronto are so amazing. It's such like a wonderful community. And when COVID hit, it almost was like not more professional opportunities, but more, let's say, off the grid, I don't know, opportunities, like just not like basically opportunities to keep things going and to keep the community going. And people did, like Stephen Mann, who's a great casting director in Toronto, he put together this whole like film festival, like the Isolation, what was it called? Isolation Film Festival, where people would make a short 3 minutes or less to do, to be able to create their own work because they weren't able to, to go out and do their professional work, So I submitted something for that. And also a great casting director, Molly Jane Knight, did something like a 6-week self-tape challenge or whatever, because self-tapes had become, even before COVID hit, it was starting to go in that direction. And then obviously even more so, so to kind of get people into, doing self-tapes and giving them tips about how to, so she gave a theme every week. And so it gave me an opportunity to also create some of my own work, which I hadn't done for a while, having just, done other people's industry work, which I'm very happy doing. And that was an interesting and really fun way to flex different creative muscles, So I wanted to really just take advantage of all of those opportunities, even though it wasn't like necessarily directly work opportunities like auditions and regular stuff. I really just wanted to, to like be a part of that new sort of outcropping of creativity that the community in Toronto, the creative community in Toronto created as a result, and to try to, keep things positive and keep people active and keep people interacting and creating. And it was actually quite amazing. So yeah.
Do you consider writing something in the future, maybe also inspired by your spiritual studies?
Ooh, creating something or just doing something?
No, writing.
Writing something.
Right,
You know what?
writing something, writing maybe a film or a series inspired by your spirituality.
Yeah, I did think about that every now and then. That's a good idea. Thanks for reminding me. Yet again, I did think about that.
Mm.
And I actually, every now and then I put out feelers, like when I meet other, creative people who are also spiritual, with whichever faith, by the way, like any faith, that, because there's a lot of similarities, in how we think and what kind of messages we want to portray and how we want to, like dress and be, and there's a lot of overlap there. So whenever I've connected, let's say even like in a class, like an acting class or in like some sort of Zoom creative thing, when I, when I hear other women in particular, it's been women so far, it doesn't need to be, but like other, women who also are like spiritually or religiously affiliated or drawn to, like, I talk about that if, to that maybe we should collaborate and do something from, from a spiritual point of view, and which I think is also becoming much more, like people are becoming, I don't want to say enlightened because that also sounds really pretentious, but you know what I'm saying? People are like, even if they don't give it a religious name or a spiritual name, I think people realize that there's really more to life than like physicality, you know what I'm saying? I think that's just a very universal thing. And which draws people together and just has a different sort of, you know, flavor and vibe that, yeah, I think that it would maybe be a good idea.
Did you visit other countries in the Middle East?
I didn't really visit that many countries, unfortunately. I didn't. I was like, when I came here, I came for, like for school basically originally, and I was studying here for 3 years, and I was pretty. And again, I was also flying back and forth a bit to Toronto to still do, you know, to do some film work or TV work, or whatever. And then so that took care of my traveling for that, because I was when I was in Israel, I was just very focused on what, you know, what I was learning here, and then I wanted to, you know, I wanted to see if I could stay here. And I was like, I was just very motivated to be here. I was just very, so I never really took advantage of, you know, of all the other like cool countries around here. Like some roommates of mine a few years ago, they all took a trip, I think to Greece or something, but like because of at the time, whatever, like I should have just gone, you know what I'm saying? But like whatever was going on at the time that you get caught up in and think like, oh, it's not the right time, or well, what about this, and blah, 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 blah. So like they all went and had a great time, but I just just wasn't my priority, I guess, at that time to like, you know, travel. And but yeah, I mean, now with COVID, I guess it's a little more complicated. So that's another thing. You appreciate things when they're, you always think, oh, I'll do it later, I'll do it another time. But you know, something like this happens, and
Yes, and in the Mediterranean right now, a lot of problems, you know, like Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia, a lot of conflicts in the Middle East. So better to go south, maybe, not
oh yeah,
north.
okay, thanks for the tip. I mean, there's also a lot of peace treaties going on lately, so that's great, you know.
Yes, yes.
That's what
I
we
hope
focus on.
are
Yeah.
more spiritual as well.
What did you say?
I hope they are more spiritual right now, you know, the
Yes,
leaders of the Middle East.
me too,
For
me
peace.
too.
I want to thank you very much for this interview, and I wish you all the best in your
Okay.
conquest, and hope to that you realize your dreams as well. And if you land on a new project, you do it, you know, with when you are sure that this is a nice step to go ahead in your career.
Thank you so much. Actually, but you just reminded me, could I talk about something a little quickly that I did do that
Yes,
wasn't, I didn't write a script, but
sure.
when you mentioned, let's see, thank you, like combining my spiritual, whatever, pursuits with my acting. So interestingly, one of the things that I was learning about with this, you know, in spiritual, whatever, seeking was about prayer, you know? So I was noticing that I was learning about, you know, like how to really concentrate, how to really connect, and, you know, all these principles that are, you know, that can get you in a, you know, good, I don't want to say meditative, but like connected state, and, you know, to make the most out of it. So what I was noticing is when I was trying, you know, when I was in my prayer practices during the day, and I was trying to think about the theory that I learned about like how to be connected and make whatever, and it's, you know, it's not so easy as a human being that gets distracted and stuff like that. So I was noticing that a lot of the stuff from my acting background was like kind of coming into play and helping me get present and helping, because that's a lot of, right? If you're acting, if I don't feel like it, right? If I don't feel like having the emotions that my role calls for right now, but like I'm being paid and I have to because they just said action, you have to figure out how to drum that up. You know what I'm saying? So that experience, as one example, it, you know, kind of was helping me be able to concentrate and putting things together. So one day I was like, you know what? All these things kept coming into my mind to help me. Like, let me I need to write them down one day. So one day I just like off the top of my head, I filled a page, like a whole page easily about all these different concepts that I just, you know, acquired naturally over my, you know, acting, like studying and career and everything, and how it actually directly was helpful with my, with like prayer practice, with, you know, which for people who are spiritual is pretty, you know, common. So I actually put together a class that I started teaching for like-minded people who are not necessarily like on a professional level of acting at all, but somebody who's open to that or interested in that, and who's also interested in, let's say, deepening their their connection in their own personal prayer practice or whatever like that. So I just actually transitioned that course to Zoom. That's something that also was kind of like on hold for a while, and then when everybody was teaching everything on Zoom, somebody suggested it to me like, hello, why don't you launch your course on Zoom? It's like, okay, fine, So I just finished a session like a few weeks ago on that. And it's so meaningful to put together two things that I'm like so passionate about and that are so, so like close to my heart. So that was, yeah, that reminded me when you asked me about putting those things together. That's like, that's one way, right?
Yes, of course. Very good. I want to thank you very much again for this
Sure.
interview, and I wish you all the best and hope to see you as well in Egypt soon. And
Yeah,
enjoy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.
thank you so much. You too.
Best wishes for the upcoming period.